Hi guys, it's Henrik here again from XYZ Playground. Today I'm also joined here by Joshua, another co-founder of this collective of young thinkers. And as you may know, the theme of the month is change management. And today we're gonna continue discussing, as we did in the last video we posted, what changes have happened and what changes may stay. And now last video we talked about it in the context of a consumer, the end consumer, and now we're going to flip the equation a bit and see if we can what you could make of looking from the business perspective or from the eyes of the firm, what is going to keep changing, or what change will we maybe keep going forward. So I mean, Joshua, last 12 months have been really digitally focused, and a lot of businesses have transformed their business, or at least fine-tuned them into a more digital presence. And what do you make of this going forward? Do you think that the physical future is all gone when, I mean, interacting with customers, or how do you think that we will go about and going into when restrictions are eased again?
Yeah, so I think it's a fascinating space to be thinking in, Henrik, and I think a lot of people are thinking about, what is next and how do we position ourselves for what is coming in the future. And when when dealing with existential change like a pandemic, something that you and I probably never thought that we'd experience in our lifetime, it's something that we deal with a lot of shock and we have to transform and change rather quickly. And from a business standpoint, many businesses have been forced into remote work environments, which has implications in terms of their structures, their management systems, their teams. How do you manage teams remotely, for example? And I think that that's quite interesting in terms of when you think about efficiencies that have been bought, or rather brought into this pandemic space, how have we dealt with that, and what lessons can we learn from that changes in the management system going forward? So I think that's an interesting space that needs to be played, or close attention needs to be paid to. The second is around how do we manage digital interactions? And I think that still has some way to go. And something that I have referenced, not in this forum before, but in others, is around Zoom. And, Zoom culture has definitely changed many things in our lives. But one of the things, and where I think it's still lacking, is, if you think of an orchestra practice, and Zoom has that tendency to zoom in or focus in on one speaker in a room. So, for example, you can't hold an orchestra practice over a Zoom call because you've got all of these instruments in the room and things like that. So while we've taken giant leaps in terms of technological and digital transformation, I still think that we've got some way to go with regards to the tools available to allow us to properly manage teams in a remote work environment. So I think that that's something that I'm certainly going to be paying close attention to over the coming months, and definitely looking for lessons that we can use going forward. And then lastly, I think that, like I said before we started recording, is a lot of the focus over the last 14 months has been digital, and we've been forced in that direction. And at times when we are forced into things and forced into change, we don't necessarily think through things at a deeper level that as we do when we have time. And one of the lessons here where I think we can learn a lot from is from the built environment, and how have people used built environment spaces, so parks, cities, classrooms, boardrooms, and how do we replicate that in the digital world? And I think that's something definitely to consider from a business perspective, is taking yourself back and out into the built environment. How were cities built? How were those things built and conceptualized by architects? And how can we use those lessons in building digital interactions, experiences, and the future of business going forward?
Absolutely, Osho. And as you mentioned there with Zoom, what there are still things that you are lacking in, even if having conversations like this are fairly smooth. When you're in a larger discussion or a larger organization, as you mentioned with the analogy of the orchestra, there is still a lot of room for improvements. And I'm sure that just that in itself have sparked some interest of, I mean, young, brilliant minds to sort of see what you can make out of that technology going forward as well. So, I mean, that's just the technology of remote working in itself has really improved a lot as well. And I'm sure it will continue to. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of businesses will have to sort of assess the financial damages and control those, and take a second look at the business plan. And I mean, many of us may have to do some fine tuning to our businesses. But
Yeah, and I mean, Henrik, just quickly on fine tuning, I think it's a great example in terms of restructuring and pivoting and things, thinking of different models. And I think one of the biggest examples to allow one to sort of push your thinking in that direction is to potentially look at what is currently happening in the Bitcoin space at the moment. So what are the use cases for blockchain? First of all, how is cryptocurrency being adopted, and what does the future hold in that space? And when you start thinking and understanding about that technology and how it can enable trustless transactions, it certainly gets me excited. And I think that that's definitely something and a space that businesses will explore going forward.